What if I told you that the air you're breathing right now isn't enough to keep you young? Most people don't age because of time, they age because their cells forget how to use oxygen. Every single year after 25, your body loses about 1% of its ability to use oxygen. That doesn't sound like much until you hit 50 and you've lost a quarter of your energy-making capacity. That loss shows up as brain fog, as slower healing, more inflammation, and less energy to do the things you actually want to do. But oxygen isn't about just breathing more of it, it's about pairing it with exercise so your body can actually use it. When you exercise, your heart pumps faster, your blood vessels open wider, and your cells become starving for oxygen, which means they'll actually absorb it instead of wasting it. Stack the two together, and research shows you can boost your VO2 max, the single best biomarker we have for longevity, up by 12%. This is a new training method sitting right under everyone's nose. So are you actually getting older, or have you just quietly forgotten how to breathe? Welcome to AI for Founders, I'm Ryan Estes. On this show, you'll learn how founders build category-defining companies, and this episode is for anyone who's ever felt let down by a broken healthcare system and wants to take their health back into their own hands. Today's guest is Brad, founder of 1000 Roads, a company building exercise with oxygen therapy devices that help people recover from chronic illness and boost longevity. If a training method hiding in plain sight can add years to someone's life, imagine what's sitting in your inbox waiting to be built. Head to aiforfounders.co and get the newsletter that hands you the playbook other founders had to learn the hard way. Subscribe at aiforfounders.co because the best ideas from this episode won't stay free forever, but the newsletter always will. If this episode gave you one new brain cell, do us a favor and leave us a review. Think of it as a high five you can send us from your phone. Now let's talk about one growth channel nobody can ever take away from you, the inbox. Algorithms change, platforms ban accounts, and reach gets throttled overnight, but your email list belongs to you forever. Inbox Alchemy is the #1 distribution motion for founders who are done building on rented land. They grow your list with guaranteed results. They craft your weekly founder newsletter for you, and they open doors to partnership opportunities that put your brand in front of exactly the audience you want. This is how you build a personal brand that compounds instead of one that resets every time the algorithm shrugs. Stop chasing the feed and start owning your audience for life. Head to inboxalchemy.co and let them build the newsletter machine you don't have time to build yourself. Bam, there we are. Brad, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. And shout out to Dr. Kumar, who made the recommendation and introduction. Ravi Kumar's podcast is extraordinary. If people are looking for like very rigorous scientific type health content, go find his. If you're looking for speculative, rampant exaggeration, you found my show, which is perfect. It's where I live. That's to say that, Brad, you're a bit of an innovator and a inventor, and you've made a very, very cool product. So give us an introduction to your product.
Sure. Well, I got into it naturally. They say necessity is the mother of invention. I was really sick. I developed autoimmune arthritis. They put me on drugs for it, and one of the side effects of the drugs was melanoma, which I developed. So I had to get out of traditional medicine because there just wasn't an answer that could treat me without putting risk for me. And eventually I found out I had Lyme disease too. I was collecting diagnoses faster than I could do anything about it. But one of the things I ended up trying after so many things failed me was something called exercise with oxygen therapy, which is just what it sounds like. You exercise, you do 15 minutes of cardio while you're breathing near pure oxygen, and you get many of the same benefits you'd get from let's say hyperbaric oxygen, and in many cases actually stronger benefits. And then I paired that with red light therapy. They both kind of work to improve your mitochondrial health. And after a year of getting better, I had a doctor who recommended them, reached out to me and said, hey, would you consider making these for my patients? And so we started 1000 Roads in 2018 to help folks improve their wellness and recover from chronic health conditions.
Amazing. And people have to check it out. It's 1000roads.com, where basically you have kind of like a respirator and it's hooked up to a giant balloon of oxygen. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, about 1,000 liters. So you can take in as much oxygen in 15 minutes as you would in an entire normal day.
Let's talk about the benefits of that too, because I think this reminds me of like Las Vegas is notorious for like pumping oxygen into the casinos. So people
Yeah.
feel better. They start to get a little more loose with their tokens, I guess. Um,
Right.
what are some of the benefits of like just pure oxygen?
Oxygen's a really astonishing. So when your cell has two ways to make energy, when it has oxygen, it produces them one way. When it runs out of oxygen, it has these backup generators, if you will. And the backup generators can only produce about 5% as much oxygen. So oxygen is kind of the key that allows for complex life. And as we get older, our body loses the ability to utilize oxygen about 1% a year every year after 25, which doesn't sound like much. Then you get to about age 50 and you've lost 25% of your ability to utilize oxygen, and thus your energy status goes down. So the effects of that are slower healing, less athletic performance, brain fog, low energy, and so many other things, increased inflammation. And so when you do exercise with oxygen therapy, you can start to reverse some of those declines. And so it improves mental clarity, it improves energy, it improves recovery from everything from athletic endeavors to the things in life that wear you down, improves detoxification, and reduces inflammation. So we have folks using it from all sorts of chronic health conditions, because if you think about any chronic health condition, at the root of it is inflammation, and same with aging. And so we have folks using it for longevity, biohacking, and chronic health conditions and sports performance.
Yeah, and of course we've known like the respiratory benefits forever. It's just kind of like intuitive because particularly during COVID, a lot of
Yeah.
our nanas and papas were like getting supplemental oxygen because they're testing it like, hey, what's the oxygen level in your blood? It's too low. So, they're getting the like little strap. So we
Yeah.
know medically it's been available for a long time, but I've never heard of exercise with oxygen as a therapy. So what are maybe the additional benefits of the exercise?
Yeah, well, so when you start exercising, your body immediately goes into an oxygen deficit. And so it tries to compensate. And the way it compensates is, if you think about it, you start breathing deeper and faster when you exercise. It's trying to get more oxygen in because it's the gating factor to keep up enough energy production. Your heart starts beating faster to circulate more of it. Your blood vessels dilate to open up and allow more oxygen through. So we just like hijack all these physiological differences and to allow us to bring more oxygen in. And that's why you can bring in a day worth of oxygen in 15 minutes. Now, what makes it particularly powerful is we're mating that increased oxygen supply with an increased oxygen demand. So when you're exercising, your cells and your whole body is actually very receptive to taking in more of that oxygen and using it. And so when you funnel a lot of oxygen to it while that demand is up, it's now able to utilize the oxygen and do all the things that oxygen does. So when you have enough excess oxygen, now your cells have excess energy, and that excess energy can be used for things like detoxification, cellular repair and renewal, so on and so forth. And so much of what goes on in our body is gated by this energy production. So we don't realize it, but so much of what we think of as classically as aging is really just a breakdown of the energy production machinery.
Breakdown of a lot over here.
I feel you. I was described it when I was at my sickest. I was like, I literally felt like I was 95 years old. I could barely walk. Everything hurt. And so I would say, to me, it was actually a gift, because I learned what would happen to myself if I allowed myself to go down that path. So I feel very fortunate. Nowadays, I feel many, many decades younger than I did back then.
Yeah, it's funny. Just serendipitously, this last weekend, I found myself on the beach with like 5 beautiful women, you know.
That'll make you feel
My
younger.
wife, of course, and then 4 other gals. They're in their late 20s, mid 30s. And I don't know what they were talking about, but they kind of look over at me. They're like, so what age was it when like kind of you felt like everything just kind of went down from there?
Ooh.
It's like, why are you looking at me?
I guess now that you mention it.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? That's a great question. How old are you? She's like 36. I was like, right there, 36. It's all downhill from here. Congratulations.
Well, it's true. I always tell folks when we have these longevity conversations, there's a lot of people out there selling this live to 150 stuff. And I said, look, here's the fact. Today is the youngest you'll ever be. So, take advantage and live in it. So.
Yeah. And I don't think she meant to be mean-spirited, but boy, did it really kind of stab my heart.
It stabs harder when they don't mean it.
Exactly. I was like, I'm going to go dye my hair, lose 50 pounds immediately, and get on steroids. I mean, I guess that's what I need to do. I need some spackle for my face. I need injections everywhere. But, to that point, like, functional fitness is something that's always been important to me. I guess that's kind of a new tag to put on it. But, being very athletic and kind of into sports as a kid, and then you get older and you start figuring out like, hey, how do I stay limber for as long as I possibly can? Right. And in my 20s and 30s, it was a lot of martial arts. I was doing wrestling and jujitsu and capoeira, and all that stuff really kind of started to take its toll. And I knew that ultimately at some point, yoga would be an endpoint for me because it's something you can practice for the rest of your life, So I found that out, 3-4 years ago and started doing a lot of stuff with yoga and then starting to look at different methodologies to keep the body limber. So this kind of therapy is very interesting. And I'm ecstatic that it kind of helped treat some of your chronic conditions and make you feel better. And we talk a lot to folks that are building tools or working in pharmaceuticals and things like that for pathology. But a passion of mine is kind of the treatments for the well, the people that feel good, but want to feel as good as they possibly can, So this kind of falls right in there. Now, is there kind of like I don't want to say intoxicating feeling, but do you get kind of high from ingesting all this oxygen? All right, fitness fans, creatine might be the most studied supplement on the planet, and for years, everybody thought it was just for guys trying to get huge in the gym. And we are, but that's maybe a third of the story. Yes, the physical benefits are real. More strength, better recovery, more output. But what got me taking it every single day is the mental side. Your brain runs on the same energy systems your muscles do, and the research on creatine for focus, memory, and mental fatigue is genuinely impressive. I notice it most on long days, back-to-back calls, deep work in the afternoon, and I'm still not fried by 3 p.m. And I really notice it when I don't take it. Momentous makes pure creatine. NSF certified and third-party tested, no fillers, no junk. I'm on about 10 grams a day. And because it's a daily habit, this is exactly the kind of thing you should have on subscription instead of remembering to reorder. So click the link in the show notes and my code stacks with the standard 25% subscription discount for 35% off your first subscription order, plus 10% off every recurring order after that. If you're taking daily creatine, this is the absolute best. Subscribe once, set it and forget it. Thanks, Momentous. All right, let me describe my closet to you. Black t-shirts, gray t-shirts, flannel shirts, and hoodies. That's it. That's my whole collection. For years, my personal style has been the guy who might go fishing later but probably won't. And look, the uniform is comfortable, but somewhere along the way, I realized that dressing like a Colorado stereotype was not doing me any favors. Enter Tailor. It's a menswear rental subscription that combines AI with the real professional human stylist to send you complete outfits picked just for you. Your size, your lifestyle, even your calendar and the weather. You wear the clothes, you look sharp. And when you're done, you ship them back with the prepaid label. Tailor handles the laundry, the dry cleaning, all of that. No shopping, no outfit planning, no defaulting to hoodie number 4. And if you fall in love with the piece, you can buy it at a discount and keep it forever. With access to over 150 premium brands, even a black t-shirt guy like me found things worth keeping. Go to tailor.style and use code Ryan30 for $30 off your first shipment on any plan. That's TAELOR.style, code Ryan30. Dress better, live better.
Some folks definitely do. We get the emails they feel great after their first session and they can't believe it. It kind of depends on your gap between your energetic status at the beginning of that session and how quickly your body responds. What happens is, as our cells lose the ability to produce enough energy, they stop taking out the trash. So sometimes we have the exact opposite thing happen. So if your cells aren't getting enough oxygen, 2 things happen. 1, they produce a lot more metabolic waste and free radicals that causes more damage. And 2, because they're in that lower energy status, they just let it build up inside the cell wall. So we start flooding folks with oxygen. And some of the folks, particularly who are really sick, their first session, if they go too hard, too fast, they feel like junk, quite frankly, the next day. I get this occasionally. It's usually about 5% of our folks. Because what happened is they just dumped all those toxins into their blood, and now their kidneys and their liver and their elimination organs can't get rid of it fast enough.
Interesting.
But for this other cohort, who are already feeling pretty well, often they'll get an amazing kind of, energy spike from it, and they'll tell us better sleep at night, more energy during the day, and clear-headed. But even the folks who start out kind of in that, where they overdo it and they end up having what we call a Herxenheimer reaction, that kind of detoxification reaction, they'll come back usually, a few weeks later and tell me how much better they're feeling. So they get through that as well pretty quickly.
Herxenheim reaction, what's that?
There was this Dr. Jared Herxenheimer who discovered that when you start killing off things in your body, like infectious agents, they sometimes leach out like toxins. Like, for instance, when I had Lyme disease, Lyme produces a lot of chemicals like acetaldehyde, which you may know is also the chemical that causes you to feel hungover when you drink too much. So if you kill too much Lyme too quickly, you leach out all this acetaldehyde, and all of a sudden you just feel hungover or flu-like until your elimination organs can get it out of your blood. And if there's too much of it, just kind of like a hangover, it can linger for a while until it finally clears out.
Nice. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like that quote, there's no such thing as a biological free lunch.
Yeah, there's not. Yep. Everything you got to pay the piper on. You just got to be smart about it.
Yeah, let's talk about the cost though. I mean, right now, HRT and peptides are all like kind of the tip of the spear, what all the kids are doing now. The peptides, the jury's out. We don't really know. It seems like all the GLP-1s, all you hear is more positive information. But of course, if you're using hormone replacement therapies or you're using anabolics and stuff, there's definitely like some downside there that you have to kind of weigh out. Is there any like potential risk or danger with kind of oxygen and exercise therapy?
There's two risks with oxygen in general. The first one is it's not flammable, but it's an accelerant. So don't do it around cigarettes and candles. That's pretty easy. We have never, knock on wood, we've never had anyone who's had an issue with that. That's just common sense. Keep sparks away from your balloon of oxygen. And then number two, there's something called oxygen toxicity. You can get too much oxygen, and you actually cannot do that with exercise with oxygen therapy. That's one of the great things about it, because they pair so well. What happens in oxygen toxicity is the oxygen gets stuck in your circulatory system, and it creates this toxic effect in our circulatory system. But because when you're exercising, you produce a massive amount of carbon dioxide gas that actually forces the oxygen out and into the tissues. So that's one of the great things about it, is really, as long as you're smart and you don't put it near a flame or something, you're good to go.
I mean, is there a safe way that you could have this on and smoke cigarettes?
No, I would not. Definitely don't do it near cigarettes. Like I tell folks, if I took a candle and put it to the end of the hose of the oxygen coming out, I'm not going to make it into a flamethrower. It's not like that, but it will make the candle burn hotter and faster. And so, it's like I tell folks, put it at least 10 feet away from your gas appliance, like your furnace or your water heater. And by the way, if your water heater starts a flame that gets 10 feet inland from it to where this thing is, you already have a problem. You need to get out of that house, sort of thing. So like I said, we're lucky. We've never had anybody who's, made a poor choice or under poor circumstances had any issues with it.
It's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like insanely safe, essentially.
Yeah.
It's insanely safe. And,
Can't
I know you're on
it.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You can't overdo it. We only recommend you do it like 3 to 5 times a week, but if you wanted to do it 3 to 5 times a day, it's not really going to hurt you. It's just like the incremental benefits become smaller and smaller.
What are some of the case studies? How are people like kind of stacking this with their training and their recovery? I know you were on Asprey talking about this, and that guy might be the king of all biohackers,
Yep.
How are people using it?
It's different for different folks. Like I said, we've got folks using it for chronic health challenges, everything from cancer to long COVID, Lyme disease, autoimmunity, dementias, CTE, etc.
Really?
Strokes. And so they'll just use it, they kind of build up. You don't have to go kill yourself on it. You kind of start. That's a great thing about exercise, the oxygen therapy is number one, the oxygen makes the exercise easier than it would be. So it increases your capacity almost immediately. And then over time, your capacity increases relatively quickly. So you just start where you're at and what you're comfortable with. You don't want to overdo yourself and cause an energy crash. And then for folks like biohacking, there's a variety of different things. Like we use it with red light, and the way you stack it with red light is very specific. You do EWAT first, and you do red light immediately afterwards, because the way red light therapy works is actually it works by increasing oxygen utilization in your mitochondria. So all the benefits, whether you hear skin health benefits, bone healing, muscle, recovery benefits, it's all from the same place, causing your mitochondria to use more oxygen. So we flood the body with oxygen first, and then while there's this abundance of oxygen in our circulatory system, we stimulate it with red light so that the mitochondria will use as much of that oxygen as possible to maximize energy production.
Interesting. If there's like kind of like a gain of function as far as like cardio, is it listed for PEDs? I mean, if you're a professional athlete, do you need to be worried about supplementing oxygen?
They really can't measure supplemental oxygen. You don't have to worry about that. And there's actually been a ton of research by the U.S. Olympic team and other places on the athletic benefits. It's, if you're out there in the longevity space, the number one best biomarker we have for longevity is VO2 max. VO2 max literally stands for the maximum volume of oxygen your body can consume. The more oxygen you can consume, the more work your body can produce, and the more likelihood you're going to live longer. And there's research showing that just doing exercise with oxygen therapy can increase your VO2 max by 6 to 12%, which is massive. It improves power output. It improves recovery time. It improves speed, short-term memory, endurance, like any sort of endurance or cardiovascular exercise that improves. And then even strength training, it helps with the recovery, so you don't have as much lactic acid burning up your muscles and having, basically to recover even more.
6 to 12% is insane. That's humongous.
It is humongous. Especially for the crazy thing is I used to do 30 minutes of cardio and now I do 15. So save time and get incremental benefits.
Yeah. I mean, I have endurance athletes pick this up, whether it's marathon runners or cyclists or.
Yeah, we have a variety of folks we don't tend to market so much to that market, but we have a variety of folks who are using it and reach out to us. I hear about it all the time, even down at the high school level and on up. As a matter of fact, I just had a lady who bought it and had her daughter use it for her senior year, and she only got to use it for a couple of months before the end of her senior year, and she wrote me in May to tell me how she had all these personal records and she was this close to qualifying for state, which they hadn't imagined she could. I had another high school athlete who was trying to break the U.S. record for the one mile, who was using it, the all-time high school record. We have college athletes, we have some professional athletes, etc.
Yeah. I mean, it seems there's this guy Destroying. Have you ever seen his videos on YouTube?
What's he doing?
His name's Destroying. He does
No.
the videos he does is he'll do tours of D1 football programs and just go in and show their locker rooms and show their weight and show the fields. And it's the most extraordinary thing you've ever seen. I mean,
wow.
The way these guys are training, it's so luxurious to the point that I bet you could, if you did a mock-up of the product and with the Michigan M on it, just send it to the strength and conditioning coach, they'd probably buy 10 of them and build a wing, because 6 to 12% is a staggering improvement.
Yeah, absolutely is. I do think it's one of the best kept secrets that some of our customers are using. I'm it's an almost unfair advantage.
Yeah.
And it just goes to what I was talking about earlier, which is there's this natural synergy between oxygen and exercise. You can breathe more oxygen. You don't have to worry about oxygen toxicity because of the exercise, because you are stimulating the supply and the demand at the same time, versus just going after one of them.
Yeah. It's, if it could get me from an 11 a minute mile to a 10-minute, 30-second mile, it's worth it.
Probably get you a little better than that.
Yeah, well, I would do it just to I'd get a lifestyle fitness subscription and just bring the whole thing in there, just for the drip, just so people were like, what is this guy doing? This is
Yeah, you definitely get some looks.
Yeah, cool. I said PEDs, but that's been maligned in our culture in a major way. I mean, the staggering fall of Lance Armstrong is kind of like the poster boy for PEDs. And that's really when I started to pay attention. I think Lance Armstrong was, because he was such a liar and kind of a deceitful person, it really rubbed people wrong. But we've kind of been growing a little bit to the point that didn't they have like the steroid Olympics or something like this summer?
Yeah.
But the idea of performance enhancing as being negative is starting to wash away.
That's right.
And I don't want to say PEDs either, because obviously oxygen is not a drug any more than like carbon's a drug, but this idea of performance enhancement is really, I think, also like captivating and creating new opportunities for all these new therapies and ultimately new markets. Do you see this as kind of like more of a treatment for people that are going through, some kind of ailment, or do you see this as a way for people to kind of supplement what they're doing and moving into like better health?
Well, like the original performance enhancing technology was exercise, right? We all know that number one, if there's anything you're going to do that's going to improve your longevity and your performance, it's exercise. And so you have to kind of separate, hey, which of these are short-term gain for long-term pain sort of thing. You're going to have to pay the piper, as you were saying. We have a lot of folks who are using it for general wellness because, to your point, 6 to 12% VO2 max is big. Being able to go back up and down the stairs in a way you couldn't before without your joints hurting because of inflammation, having the energy to do it, having the capacity to do things you couldn't do before. When you lose something, when you lose the capability and then you regain it, I think there's a greater appreciation for it that you didn't have. It's a shame we all start out young and we have all this capability and then we gain appreciation for it as we lose it, right? So when you lose something and then you gain it back, I can tell you personally, you just appreciate it so much more. And I see that all the time. We have folks who are using it, they get in their 60s or their 50s and they start noticing they don't feel the way they used to. And they start looking for ways to improve their health. And often that's how they find their way to us. And I love some of those stories. They're just great.
Let's get into the product and the brand a little bit. I said inventor because I have the utmost respect for inventors, and I kind of differentiate an inventor, somebody who builds hardware, which is just cool. It's like bringing something novel into the world is really cool just on a face value. So, a couple of questions. One, how did you land on the name 1000 Roads? And then two, maybe walk us through the process of kind of your first steps in developing the product itself and like what you kind of learned along the way.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that in reverse. So the doctor who was helping me, he diagnosed me at Lyme, and we tried all sorts of alternate treatments, supplements, prescription. Nothing was working. And he basically threw a Hail Mary to me. He said, Brad, I think you should try oxygen. You should either do exercise with oxygen therapy or hyperbaric oxygen. And I first looked into hyperbaric because I'd heard of it. And it was going to be $50,000 or $75,000. It was going to be an hour and a half inside of a tube for 8 weeks, 7 days a week. And I just couldn't figure out how I was going to afford it, how I was going to keep my job when I was going to be gone for a couple hours every day. This is long before the pandemic when you could work remotely. And so that kind of ruled that out. And then I started looking at this, and there were just a few companies selling it, and they were really high prices. And I wouldn't have minded paying some of those prices if I knew it was going to help me, but I'd tried 200 different things, literally, and nothing helped at all, and I didn't expect anything on this list to help. So I just I couldn't see myself spending $5,000 or $10,000 on these things. So I kind of walked away and said, I'm not doing either of them. I don't have that kind of money for an experiment. And then Then I kind of thought about it and I said, well, what am I going to do? I got to come up with something. Like I'm getting worse every week. And then I just finally said to myself, well, hey, if it didn't cost that much, would you do it? And it was like, well, 15 minutes a day, I could do that. And so I just decided I was a joke. I'm a recovering engineer. I got a mechanical engineering degree and spent about 10 or 15 years in engineering. So then I just put it to work and kind of figured it out and decided to make my own. It was challenging at first, figuring it's not just, hey, how does this thing got to work? But then actually finding parts and pieces and supplies, particularly at small volumes to build one for myself. That was a challenge. And then a year later, I got better, and the doctor asked if I'd start making them for his patients. And at first I said, no, I'm still on my recovery journey. I was a lot better, but I didn't want to overwork myself and set myself back. And I thought about it for a while, and about 6 or 9 months later, I was kind of like, you know what, maybe I'll do this. And I actually wanted to do it to pay it forward. I felt like when I was really sick, everyone wanted to offer me a $25,000 test that I could try to see if I'd get better. I had a doctor once, I walked into his office and he's like, I just imported this technology, Brad, from Germany, and I'm the only one in the US who has it, and it's $60,000. He's like, but it'll get you better, I'm sure. And he saw my jaw drop and he goes, yeah, it's like the cost of a Mercedes is what he said at the time. He's like, but wouldn't you give up a Mercedes for your health? And I just felt so taken advantage of at the moment. Like, he was hostage taking, it felt like.
Yeah.
And so when I decided to develop it, I was more of like a pay it forward. I really wasn't planning on it becoming my full-time gig. It was just to help other people dealing with health challenges and make this, bring it forward and bring some of the science forward. And so 1,000 Roads came from kind of a place of humility, recognizing that everyone has their own wellness road to travel. And I wasn't going to go out there and scream that we're the only thing, or, everyone's got to kind of make their own choices. And it also started from my hope that maybe I could help 1,000 other people recover so they didn't have to be in that kind of lonely, scary place I was in my darkest hours.
Beautiful. I love that, man. And so you start building it for a doctor, and now you're kind of a direct-to-consumer e-commerce product, essentially.
That's right.
Yeah. Once you kind of decided like, hey, I want to go all in on this, how did you start to kind of find your first customers? I know that obviously podcast has been like a great channel for you. Maybe you could share some of your other kind of go-to-market strategies.
Yeah, sure.
Start there.
Well, when I first started doing it, I designed it and I assumed if I made it, they would come. I finished designing the product. I built out the supply chain. I went back to the doctor, and the phone didn't ring. And then I decided, well, I'm going to reach out to some alternate health doctors in the area. I'm in Dallas area. So I literally drove around Dallas and I got a couple appointments where they would listen to me. One other doctor said he'd refer, but the phone never rang. And then we started by just putting it up on eBay. It was kind of like a test, like it wasn't all the infrastructure of getting all the approvals of Amazon. Did that for a while. Eventually I was like, I knew I was paying too much to eBay, so we built our own website. So we grew from there, and then we started getting traffic, and I think we started with like SEO, really, search engines. Sure. We started getting some hits from search engines, and then at the beginning, I wasn't really taking any of the money out of the business. I just reinvested it, and so at some point we started investing in ads, and that got us to another place. And then later we wanted to get the word out more broadly, so we've worked on things like podcasts. We started a YouTube channel, working more on getting into social media. I'm terrible at social media. I'm the last person in the world to get on social media, but my team kind of forced me and nudged me in front of the camera more and more, so thank goodness for them. So that's been a big component of it. Paid ads, search engines, which also nowadays it's obviously generative AI search effectively, and content. Content's king.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I've learned, I'm all over social media too, trying to find my way. I have a little thing pop ever here and there, but I gotta, I'm still learning. And what I've learned is that if you put the EWAT system on like a super hot chick, it's probably going to do pretty good.
Yep. Amazing how that works. However many millennia of
Really fires up the brain stem, I think, for some reason.
I don't know why. Yeah.
Cool. How did you finance in the beginning?
Self-financed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put a small amount of money into it, and it was very nerve-wracking. It was kind of progressive, so I got a little bit into it and a little bit more. At the beginning, I remember I was like, should I really buy 10 masks? Sort of thing. How long will this last? And then when I'd sold all 10 of those masks, the profit, I could go out and buy, 15 or 20 masks sort of thing. And so that was kind of the nice part for us about growing organically, is that because we didn't need to take any outside funding. And because I didn't have any outside funding, and for the first, 4 or 5 years, I wasn't actually taking anything out of the business, I didn't have to worry about there wasn't a creditor coming for me. There wasn't rent coming for me. I just did it out of my house. And then when we got to scale where it was time, it kind of almost started to elbow me, right? It was like elbowing me out. It was like, look, man, you don't have time to do your day job and this. You're going to have to decide, sort of thing. And that was kind of my jumping off point.
Nice, man. Just to get an idea of kind of demand, like what's a good month like? How many units would you sell?
Oh, it's so variable. I'd have to look at it. I don't even look at, that's not a metric I track, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's beautiful because it's kind of like it's mission based, it's, obviously you're in it to make a living, but because it helped you, and like the option is otherwise this or a Mercedes, it's like, can I have a Mercedes and get my treatments? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I always describe it as always like, I always felt like I was bleeding in the water and there were all these sharks circling around, and it's, you're going through this personal health crisis and you have all these people who are like salivating, and it just feels very unsavory. So yeah, it's very gratifying when I get to help someone. Those are my favorite moments, is when I get to talk to someone who's told me how it's improved their life or turned their health around. So
I think that's why I'm so interested in treatments for the well, because, it's awful being in the medical system. It's so scary and confusing, and you're basically in the middle of a war between the insurance companies and your doctors and the clinicians, and multiple doctors are giving you different information. It's really awful. One of my favorite things about this show is I meet so many people that have really dedicated their lives to improving that system. And I think that there's a lot of things coming, but ultimately it just reminds me, it's like, man, take care of your body now as much as you can, so you can stay away from that as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing, is health span. Like, no one wants to spend the last 25 years of their life in a bed having someone take care of them, or in a nursing home, right? Like, the goal is to have, a good, healthy, long life that you're functional through the vast majority of it, so that you can do the things you love doing. Because it just, the idea that your soul's slowly being crushed as you can do less and less, and it's like, that's not the way any of us want to blink out, if you will.
Totally. Yeah. I heard some kind of disparaging thing. This guy was talking about a human life, and he's like, well, you basically routinely get better until you're about 25. And then you have a couple of decades to develop skills. And then hopefully your body fails before your mind goes. And I was like, geez, what are you, a poet?
Yeah, right. Thanks.
I think somewhere in there you dance or something. Like, come on, man.
Totally. Thanks for that beautiful view of life.
I heard that and just gazed out the window solemnly for a minute. It's like, nah, I think there's more in there. I think there is. Okay, Brad, we're at the time of the podcast where we're going to go to the quantum round. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Now, the quantum round is brought to us by our dear sponsor, which is Taylor.style. And what Taylor.style is it's a men's fashion subscription. and it's enhanced by your own personal stylist and AI. So basically what you do, if you're like me and you have weird proportions, I have very long torso, very stumpy legs. So it's hard to find. So you can put all your measurements in there, you put your style requirements in there, and it will actually pick out pieces. Now, I'm not wearing anything from Taylor today. This is my normal fashion, which is brought to you by the good people at Kirkland. I don't know if you know Costco, but like that's where I do most of my shopping. But now, since to Taylor.style, if I'm doing a business trip, which I did last weekend, I brought a bunch of great clothes from there. I had a panel discussion I was hosting a couple of weeks ago. I got some great compliments on my style there, and am basically lost in Kirkland without Taylor.style. So if you're like me and you want to check out men's fashion, check out Taylor.style. Okay. So what we've got here is the founder challenge question. I'm going to drop in a couple of categories here for you to choose from. We could go tough and unfiltered question.
Uh-oh.
We could go scandalous and risky. We could go explosive and intriguing, or raw philosophy and self-reflection. Does anything stand out for you?
Let's do raw philosophy and self-reflection.
All right. What emotion drives you more, fear or ambition?
I think that changes day to day. I think fear is a stronger motivator than ambition for anyone. This is the engineering me. One of the most fundamental things I learned about humans that I find fascinating is that $1 of loss hurts more than $1 of gain feels good. And they draw this little utility curve, and it's like $1 loss hurts way more. And so I think for anyone who's successful, there's that like fear of not getting where you want is probably a bigger motivator.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's part of the appeal of like entrepreneurship in general, is that pain of losing $1 is horrible. But if you feel like you have agency to go get another one, you're like, all right, well,
that's right.
Let's focus and go close some deals.
And of course, it's also exhilarating is when you're like, you kind of just say, hey, I know I'm going to put myself out there and I could get slapped for it, but I'm just going to go do it and see what happens. Like, there's something to be said for having the fear and doing it anyhow.
Agreed. And there's also like the trough and kind of peak of, losing $1, closing the deal, making the sale feel so good, and then you have some setbacks. It's actually underrated how challenging that can be, particularly for founders, because it can be very lonely feeling. A lot of times you feel like great despair, like it's only happening to you. Like, why is this only happening to me? You can't really share it because you can't share it with your staff. You can't share it with your partner because they're tired of hearing about your problems. It really kind of falls on your shoulders. Is there anything that you do kind of as an entrepreneur to kind of like, make that feel a little bit better?
Yeah, this is going to sound a little woohoo, but as I went through, I spent a lot of time worrying about a lot of things, starting with, as we talked about, my health journey. And as I look back on things, some of the things that didn't make a lot of sense when they happened to me, and they felt like poor me at the time, I look back and I see those are some of my biggest gifts. I didn't realize it. I joked earlier, I had this gift of feeling 95 when I was like in my late 30s. And so now I understand that, and I understand what I don't want to feel like when I'm in my 80s. So I've come to realize that most everything in my life happens for me, not to me. And when you shift that mindset that, hey, I'm not a victim of this is here to teach me something. And also reminding yourself, I think in our culture, we train ourselves like, hey, if you don't have utility, you're not going to have money, and then you're not going to have a house, and you're not going to have food, and no one's going to want to care for you, and you're never going to have any of the things. And there have been times when I've gotten myself worked up, and I've just had to remind myself, re-baseline. I'm like, look, you're never going to be without a roof. You're never going to be without food. Look around in America. No one's really, we probably have too much rather than not enough. So, get over this. There's not an existential sort of thing going on here. Like, it's really, sometimes it's your ego gets in the way of it. So for me, I just try to remember, everything has worked out, and how am I going to feel when I'm 90? I just don't want to spend all my time between now and 90 worrying about the things that never come to pass.
I love that. It's so important, because the paranoid thoughts, man. It was like a window to my soul right there. What you were saying, you're gonna be a burden. You're gonna suck. You're gonna be on the street, and maybe that's why, like, what is that? What's that scripture on? It's the Sermon on the Mount where he's like, consider the lilies of the field. They spin not nor they toil, yet Solomon in all his glory are not dressed such as thee. So it's like Jesus was saying the same thing, where he's like, hey, man, relax. Consider the lilies of the field. They're just chilling, man. Be like that. And sometimes that's all it takes to like help me out a little bit, to be like, yeah, man, it'd be all right. We'll be all right.
You just remember, I do believe that the harder you work, the luckier you get, sort of thing. So it's just like, I just remember the things I can control and I can't control. Okay, what can I control? What with my limited time resources, where do I want to dedicate it? Where do I think's the best? And then just go do it. And of course, you reevaluate every once in a while. But like, that's really what it comes down to. Is I kind of view it as signals from the universe coming back to me, telling me, move a little to the left, pivot 90 degrees to the right, whatever it is. Like, what am I learning here?
Yeah. It's something I've been talking to my son about. He's 17 and he's kind of he's a senior in high school, so all the big questions. And of course, the momentum of your senior year, what are you going to do next year? What are you going to do? Well, he's not convinced that he wants to go to college right away. He sees what I do, like basically strapped to my desk 12 hours a day. He doesn't want to do that, so we're going through a lot of different options. And a lot of times I think kids, they feel kind of pigeonholed and they got to make big decisions, and it's a little bit scary. But kind of what I told him is I was like, look, man, we have so much opportunity right now that if you're really passionate about anything and it's what you really love to do and you go all in, you'll find a way to make a living doing that. Like if you dedicate yourself right now, you'll figure it out. And no one's really preaching that gospel much right now. And it's unfortunate because it's like, be honest. Like, what do you really like? Do you like lizards? Like, don't find the lizard business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll do all right,
And you can in this way that you couldn't 20 years or 30 years ago. I actually feel like college, and I had a similar conversation with my son. He's 15, so we're getting ready for him to start driving next month. So, it's like, it's a couple things. One, I've told him, like, hey, if you are passionate about something, you can make something out of it. If you don't want to be, stuck doing a temporary job for gas money, like, go figure out something you can do now, because dad's paying for your housing and your food. Like, and you got time, you could sit and do video games if you want, but you can also do other things. But I think like college is like a good time to like network and meet other people your own age who are different than the people you grew up with in your own town, who have different priorities or think about the world differently, and like give yourself some time, because the truth of the matter is no one knows what the heck they want to do when they're 18. And no one even really knows when they're 22. I'm sorry. Some might tell you they do, and a few of them might stick through it for a while, but like, we all just need time to develop. I joke, I've changed careers at least 3 or 4 times in my life, and probably in another decade I'll be doing something different. I'm curious like that. I like to do different things and try different things. And some people, they like the safety of the same thing. Some folks want something different, but you also got to give yourself time to figure out what that thing is. Because how many people have settled into something? They say, hey, I want to do something. They settle into it, and then they're afraid to leave it because they've already built momentum in it, but they don't really love it, right? So that's the danger.
I couldn't agree more, and I think now too, kids, they need a little more time to cook.
Yeah.
I mean, I moved out when I was 18 and I slept on the floor and used plastic spoons, It was awesome. It was great.
Best days of your life.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't have a cell phone bill. I didn't need Claude Code subscriptions. I didn't need all this stuff. Like kids now, it's like you have all of your 20s to kind of figure out what you're into. So that's my message for the 10, 17-year-olds that are listening to this podcast right now. Amazing. And you mentioned your career and changing directions, and that's something I really enjoyed. I was looking at your LinkedIn, and it's awesome, man. You took it all the way back. And one thing that jumped out was your time at Guitar Center. When I was 19, I worked at Guitar Center, and I was like, oh man, that was so fun. Do you remember your Guitar Center employee number?
Well, I didn't work at the stores. I worked in the corporate, so I was probably the guy you hated. To be honest,
So you wouldn't remember. I know you have an employee number because that's how like Guitar Center's got the whole hierarchy and stuff like that.
yeah, I don't know my employee number anymore. No, I don't know that I ever memorized it, thankfully. But yeah, they had that archaic whole system they used, that whole POS system. When I was there, it was pretty interesting. Green screen, I believe, is what they referred to.
Monochromatic, yeah.
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 I was so my favorite town hall, we were at this town hall and the CEO gets on stage and he's like, yep, we've redesigned the green screen. So behind in the back end, it's like a Ferrari. I was like, you took a Ferrari and you put it on top of something that's green screen because it's only got one color.
Oh,
It was like a DOS front end.
oh, man, dude! Shout out to Guitar Center, man.
That was one of my favorite jobs, though. I love that place.
Yeah, I know. It's tough time to sell guitars now. People aren't in bands anymore. They probably sell a lot
No.
more DJ equipment. But at the time, I was the drum department manager, and we had our regional manager Tony Buffalo.
I know Tony. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, he's a Guitar Center legend.
Yeah.
And I remember I was working in Park Meadows, Colorado, which is just south of Denver, maybe halfway to Colorado Springs. Now, Colorado Springs is known for a lot of stuff, but is definitely known as like the evangelical capital of the world, which is to say there's a lot of mega churches. So one thing that I did when I had some downtime is I just cold called the praise band directors and was like, hey man, I know your drummer's driving you crazy being so loud. Well, we got these new Roland E-drum kits. They're amazing. Why don't you come down and take a look? And I sold dozens and dozens of these amazing Roland E-drum kits. And so anyway, I was pretty proud of myself. And one month, I think I was like third in the country in drum sales.
I believe that.
And
Yeah.
Tony Buffalo came in, and he was on one for some reason. And I was like, hey, Tony, did you see last month I was number 3 in the nation at drum sales? And he's like, yeah, well, what are you going to do for me this month? And I was so pissed. It burned a hole in my heart because,
Right.
I'm a lot of things, but ultimately I'm kind of a sales dog. I love the pursuit. I love closing deals. I love making stuff happen. And for some reason from Tony Buffalo, I wanted a gold star and he didn't give it to me. And I didn't really understand that probably for like 20 years until I was running a team in an organization. And I had that inclination where some of my AEs were kind of like boasting about it. And I'm like, yeah, I think you can do better. And I stopped myself because I'm like, I'm not going to make them feel the way that I felt, but I felt the tinge in there.
You need, you've got to balance that, right? You've got to give people their accolades. If it was 3 months ago, he should have said that. Last month, he should have been like, that's amazing. What'd you do? How are we going to do more of that, right?
Yeah.
I love that. So Guitar Center was my first job. I spent 10 or so years, I want to say, doing engineering work. And then I did management consulting for a year. And then I wanted out of both of those.
Yeah.
And that was my first job in retail. And it was so much fun. I loved it. I worked in their corporate headquarters out in Southern California, which was amazing. I'd moved to Southern California, which was amazing coming from Chicago. I loved it. It was a great time.
And I don't want to say something disparaging against Tony Buffalo because a couple of years ago, I told my kids that story forever. And I was like, Tony Buffalo. And then I saw him. We were going to Guitar Center. I forget why. I think I was buying my daughter an acoustic or something. And I was like, oh my God, it's Tony Buffalo. He's still with Guitar Center. And so I went up to him and I told him the story and he just embraced me. He's like, Ryan, it's so good to see you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, Tony Buffalo's a legend. I love this guy.
Yeah. They had a lot of those guys around for just such a long time. That was a cool thing. I mean, that told you something about the culture. So many of those folks stuck around for such a long time.
Yeah.
I had a great time there. And then I spent 15 years in retail and e-commerce before I started doing this full time.
Incredible. Congratulations, Brad. To kind of wrapping up here, end of the day, you close your laptop. Who are you and what do you like to do?
Oh man, I'm a dad through and through. So my kids have me busy at travel soccer games, wrestling. I like to grill. Love to bike ride. Love to walk, and just keep active.
Incredible. I was a wrestler too. Were you a wrestler?
Yeah, I was second grade through high school.
Amazing. People just don't understand. Like, if you can make it through high school wrestling, you can get through about anything.
My kids wrestling. That's what I told them. I said, you know what? There's a lot in life you're going to get beat up, and you're going to be like, you know what? This still wasn't as bad as winning a match in wrestling.
Yeah, I
Not
know.
for the pain of heart.
When my son was wrestling, it's like his first week, he's like, "This is terrible." I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's bad." I mean, but that's why we do it.
Yeah. My son's first match, he was young, and I remember we were, he went there and he was feeling pretty good because he was doing good at practice. I'm like, this is going to be different. The tournaments are different, son. He was in elementary school, and he just, like every new kid, he got whomped on. And I just remember after it was over, he was just sitting there beat up, eating his peanut butter sandwich, and I was just like, had to give him a pep talk and be like, hey, this is the on-ramp. Like, it's how it goes the first year. So.
Oh, it never ends. Amazing. Brad, congratulations on such a cool company. I mean, thanks for coming on the podcast and talking about it and like bringing something novel into the world. I can't tell you how much respect I do have for inventors where they see a need and like bring something like this. It's so cool. People can check it out. It's 1000roads.com. I will link to it in the show notes. Brad, what's a good place for people to connect with you personally online?
Yeah, you can connect there. You can connect with YouTube is a great resource we have for folks to learn more about this. If they want to connect with me, they can connect on Brad Pitzele is my Instagram handle, or they can connect with me on LinkedIn, etc.
Great. And I will link all those in the show notes. So wherever you're listening to this, you can click and find Brad. Other than that, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate it.
In 3 years, AI fluency will be a baseline expectation for every college grad, not a differentiator, it'll be a requirement. The students getting ahead are the ones building that skill right now, in high school and college, before it becomes table stakes. AInativestudent.com is the program doing that. Weekly one-on-one coaching, live cohort sessions, on-demand courses, and the fastest growing AI chat for students, all tailored to your student's specific career path. Pre-med, they learn how AI is transforming diagnostics. Pre-law, they learn legal AI tools. Business, they learn to think like an AI power operator. One flat membership, less than a private tutor, cancel anytime, and if you're a founder listening to the show, you already know the cost of falling behind. Don't let your kid pay that price. Go to AInativestudent.com, apply in a couple minutes, and get your student into the cohort that changes their trajectory. AInativestudent.com and send them to the chat. It's totally free. Every founder I know is posting on LinkedIn, grinding on X, maybe dabbling in short-form video. And the dirty secret nobody wants to say out loud is you don't own any of it. One algorithm change and your audience evaporates overnight. The only audience you actually own is your email list. That's why the smartest founders in the world are building newsletters, and Inbox Alchemy builds it for you. They create your weekly founder newsletter, design a beautiful newsletter website, and grow your audience to 25,000 subscribers in the first 6 months. All of it is managed so it drives real pipeline. It builds your reputation, it nurtures the relationships that turns into deals, partnerships, and opportunities you can't even predict yet. Social is rented, email is owned. The founders who figured that out early win for decades. Go to inboxalchemy.co, that's inboxalchemy.co, and start building the audience that's actually yours. What if you had a partnership manager working for your podcast full-time, reaching out to brands, securing deals, handling all the back and forth while you just focused on making great content? That's Casey. Casey is the AI partnership agent from Howdy who actually goes out and gets your sponsors. Casey reaches out to brands on your behalf, works the conversation, and lands the partnership. You make the show, Casey makes the money. And look, Casey doesn't sleep, she doesn't lose track of follow-ups, and she never gets discouraged by a non-reply. Casey's out there right now working for podcasters who figured this out before you did. The only question is whether your show has a Casey yet. So go meet Casey at gethowdy.com. That's GETHOWDI.com. Takes a couple of minutes to get started, and Casey gets to work immediately. That's gethowdy.com. Every week, I sit down and ask myself one question. What do founders actually need to know about AI right now? Not the think pieces or the stuff that sounds impressive, the real useful put it to work today stuff. Then I write it up, send it to you in your inbox free. That newsletter is called AI for Founders, and I built it because I was tired of wading through hit pieces and people that are afraid of the future. Each issue, I break down the tools worth your time, the strategies that are working, and the ways you can use AI to grow your company without burning out or getting left behind. Thousands of founders read it every week, and I'd love for you to be one of them. Subscribe for free at aiforfounders.co. 3 seconds to sign up, and I promise it's worth it.